Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 335. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I want to do every day for the rest of my life? Do that. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Industry Jump. Industry Jump is a global community of verified filmmakers providing the next generation of filmmakers with the resources required to grow their businesses, learn new skills, and manage their careers. You can sign up for free. You can even create a verified portfolio, search for film crew to hire for your next projects, and learn from top-tier creators in the industry through live video mentoring. So if you want to check this out, guys, head over to industryjump.com. Today's show is also sponsored by ShotLister. Paper shot lists suck, and when something inevitably goes wrong on set, you're left to scribble all over your perfect plan. But with ShotLister, you can schedule your film shot by shot and minute by minute. Then on set, just update your shot list, and ShotLister automatically does the math so you know exactly what you're doing. Check out shotlister.com, which is available on macOS, iOS, and Android. And as a special bonus, ShotLister is giving away 50 free downloads every month. Just email indiefilmhustle@shotlister.com for your free copy. So guys, before we get started today, I wanted to thank all of the tribe members who have gone over and subscribed to my new podcast, the Filmtrepreneur Podcast. We've got so many subscribers that it actually jumped to the brand new and noteworthy section of iTunes, which is insane. That means that is one of the top 20 brand new podcasts in all of the television and film category. So thank you so much for all the support, guys. If you haven't checked it out, please go to Film Biz Podcast. That's Film, B-I-Z, podcast.com. And check out the new show. There's a lot of great new interviews on there as well. Now, today on the show, we have filmmaker Nick Sinakis, who is the writer, producer, and lead actor of the new film called My Best Friend's Famous. Now, this film was made for under $10,000, but the reason I got him on the show, because we've had a lot of filmmakers who have make movies for under $10,000. I've made two of them for under $10,000. But what I loved about My Best Friend's Famous is that it doesn't look like a $10,000 movie, first of all. And secondly, the cast. He has Mindy Sterling, who is famous for Austin Powers, the Goldbergs, and among other things. If you saw her face, you would know who she is. But even more impressive, they also have Ryan O'Neal, the Oscar-nominated actor from the mega hit Love Story, and even worked with Stanley Kubrick as a star of Barry Lyndon. You know, to get someone like that for under a $10,000 movie, I had to get him on the show and find out what the heck happened. How did he do it? So the film looks really good, has really high production values for a movie that was made for about 10 grand or less than 10 grand. So it's pretty remarkable. And I wanted to pick his brain and see if there's any knowledge bombs that he could drop on the tribe today. So without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Nick Sinakis. I'd like to welcome to the show Nick Sinakis, man. Thank you so much for being on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So you made a $10,000 feature film, which is, you know, it is unique, but is not as unique as it used to be. But the big difference is that yours doesn't look like a $10,000 film. So that's one of the reasons why I want to have you on, to kind of, you know, dig into your secrets on why it looks the way it looks. And for everyone listening, if you want to see the trailer to his film, it'll be in the show notes. But before we get into it, man, how did you get into this film business?
Oh, man. So I'll give you the short version. After undergrad, I was actually a visual arts major. I went to the University of Delaware. I played hockey there. I was in a fraternity. So to be an art major was kind of a little unique situation at the time. I don't want to date myself and tell you when I graduated, but always was into art, more drawing, painting when I was younger. And then college was like the first time to like even touch that on a bigger, you know, kind of scale. Mm-hmm. Got into visual arts. They had a good program and kind of let you pick and choose a little bit of what you wanted to do. And then eventually, ultimately, you know, landed more towards the film stuff. And kind of by my senior year was like, all right, if I want to do this for real, let me figure out a game plan. So I actually started as an actor. I mean, I'm still an actor, but that was like my way in, I guess. So I did a little research. I moved to New York City from Long Island originally, and kind of hit the ground running and got into a 2.5-year conservatory acting program in the city. Studied theater because I thought, all the, great actors and directors came out of New York City theater. And that's where I figured it would be a good place to start.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I went to a really good school. It's called William Esper Studio in New York City. Really great alumni. Larry David went there, Sam Rockwell, some really good people. Studied there and then kind of hit the ground running, auditioning and doing that game a little bit. I was on a soap for a little bit. I was doing bit parts, extra work. I mean,
how was the soap? How was the soap, man? You gotta tell me, how was it? Is it like Soap Dish? Like that movie Soap Dish?
I got a really good soap story actually. So I was, in soaps more so than in regular TV. You have like guest star, co-star, recurring. But, the way in soaps is the 5 and under. You have 5 lines or less, and they call it the 5 and under. And so you get a couple of those, and then you kind of build up to like the recurring, And I got one, and my character's name was Drunk Idiot. And that was the character's name. So the way that they work, I wouldn't say what soap it was, but it was in New York City, and there's a speaker sound system throughout the whole studio and the dressing rooms, and they only address you by your character's name. So
I see where this is going.
So the whole thing was everybody was like, hey, can we get the drunk idiot to hair and makeup? Drunk idiot, if you could get off the booze for a second, we need you in hair and makeup, So that was interesting, but it kind of broke the ice, and all the main actors were really kind to me because of that, and we had a really good time and stuff. But it's interesting, man. It's its own beast for sure. I definitely, from doing it, I've done almost like 10 episodes of soaps, but it's its own beast. I have a lot more respect for those guys. They get a script a night, man. They shoot Monday through Friday. You get 1 or 2 takes, and you're getting a full hour script every day to take home with you. So it's quick, and it was an interesting experience just to kind of see that world.
Very interesting. So then you fall into directing, obviously, and writing and putting together a movie. What got you to the point where you made your first film?
So this feature actually, Kevin actually directed this feature, and I wrote, produced, and acted in it. But I met Kevin in New York City, and kind of the whole do-it-yourself, start making our own thing, which that was kind of the long-winded, I guess, me getting to it was, it was when YouTube, I was in New York City. It was kind of when YouTube was first kind of coming out and becoming popular. And I was actually an extra on SNL. And it was when the Lonely Island guys like Andy Samberg and Yorma and Akiva, and it was like their first or second season. And I was just watching these guys, and I remember thinking like, man, like these guys are best friends. They're making sketches, they're making art, and they're doing it together, and they're getting paid. I'm like, this is the coolest shit ever, And from then on, I met Kevin in New York. We just started making our own stuff, and we would switch, like I would write and he would direct, or I'd direct and he'd be in it. And we just started making our own stuff, and it started in sketches and it started in TV. And then ultimately got to the point where we're like, we always wanted to be filmmakers, and if we want to be filmmakers, you got to make a film, And prior to this feature, we made 2 short films, and we kind of were testing the waters a little bit with them. The first one Kevin directed and I acted in. The second one I directed and Kevin acted in. And that kind of geared us up to this kind of feature as our first kind of endeavor, that we felt like we had kind of the tool, some kind of structure in place to be able to pull it off, I guess.
Now tell me about the film. It's called My Best Friend's Famous.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Yeah, so it's called My Best Friend's Famous. It is about two friends that moved to Los Angeles from New York, and the less talented, slothful one ends up on a hit TV show. And the other one is kind of, it's very much like, I think at its core, it's really about like potentially losing your best friend. Mm-hmm. And, the idea of, everybody seemingly having it figured out and, that feeling that you don't, kind of thing, and a little fish out of water, trying to keep up, with this new world that his friends are now in.
And you shot the whole thing for $10,000?
Yeah, actually a little bit under. So we kind of use this model from our shorts, which was, my day job is I'm an editor. I'm a video editor. Mm-hmm. And Kevin, who's, my writing partner for a long time, he's a really talented musician. So we own our own gear in some regards. So we, that takes a little bit out of the cost. And then I was going to edit it and he was going to score it. And that was kind of how we did these shorts. And then one of the things actually that Film Hustle, I mean, I've been listening to you guys for a couple of years now, but one of the ones was the Polish brothers.
Yeah.
So I think it was you had Mark and Michael on, right?
I had Michael first, then Mark a couple years later.
So I remember them talking about, or one of them, it might have been the first one that you did about the SAG New Media contract.
Yeah, that was
how
when
that was kind of like
for lovers only. Yeah.
For lovers only. Yeah. So, because I was having a big problem with SAG for this film, because I'm like, listen, we don't have any money, like it's under 10K. We're making it in my apartment, and they're like, well, you got to get a payroll company and you got to pay yourself. And I'm like, dude, like what? I'm making this out of my apartment. So,
so that is a process. So that does help. So basically you went through the SAG New Media contract.
Yes. To answer your question, yes. So that's what we did. And, people, like we were lucky enough to have Mindy Sterling and Ryan O'Neal in it, obviously, and David Ross Patterson, who's a very veteran stage actor in Australia, but also has done some film here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So we paid those guys. And but everybody else worked for, 125 deferred. And we're just kind of happy to be a part of it. And the way that we did it is we had a script, and it helped that I was the lead in it because it meant, we could get away with more, and because we could just be like, all right, let's just shoot this stuff today because it's just you and me. We basically rolled a DP and a sound guy, and that was it. So we were like, all right, what's all the scenes that's just this character? He could be eating, he could be walking down the street, he could be talking on the phone. Mm-hmm. Let's plan him, schedule him, shoot him. Mm-hmm. Then, okay, you and your love interest, So let's pull them all out, schedule them, shoot them. And that's kind of how we went. And we built up to the bigger scenes and the more complex scenes. And it was.
How long was the shoot, by the way? How long was the shoot?
We stretched it over about 8 or 9 months.
So you stretched it. So how many days, like if you add them all together?
So actually shooting days, we probably came in at around 18.
Okay.
But we really, it was really dependent on like, okay, so, we have a bar for free, so they weren't all 10-hour days, they weren't all like
2 or 3 hours here,
days.
4 hours there.
Really,
Yeah.
And like, that was kind of the benefit of having me be the lead in it also, because, it could be like me and Kevin just being like, we have this place for, 4 hours, let's go. And we could just do it kind of quickly without a lot of crazy planning, So
now I have to ask you, man, how the hell did you get an Oscar nominee and a legendary actor like Ryan O'Neal to be in your $10,000 independent film? I mean, I have to know this.
No, of course. I mean, it's crazy.
Is he your uncle? Is that what it is? Like
he is my distant uncle. No, so it's funny, man. Somebody once told me, you never know till you ask. And a lot of times people are very afraid to ask, and you'd be surprised. And this could be anything, actors, writers, directors, or just in life. People that, are willing to do stuff or help you out, So, I mean, we did have a connection to him, obviously. One of my really good friends from New York, she plays my sister in the movie. Mm-hmm. She's known Ryan for a while, and she actually works for him, and has worked for him as like kind of an assistant and some other stuff. And it really started with, we wanted to potentially use his house.
Right.
Because the antagonist in the movie, he's supposed to be a little cliche kind of Hollywood, star. And we wanted to kind of show that he lives in this nice, Malibu house on the water. So it started with being like, hey, do you think you could ask Ryan if it would be okay if we maybe shot a day in his house, like help us out, we'll send him the script, it'd be really cool. And he was super gracious and let us do that. And then I was kind of like, can I take it one step further? And I was like, hey, do you think he'd do a little cameo? It'd be really fun. We'll kind of write it to him. And he read it and was, super gracious, man. I mean, it's funny. He has a presence about him, I've been, I mean, everybody obviously was. Go ahead.
No, I got to tell you, because a lot of people who are listening might not know who Ryan O'Neal is, but Ryan O'Neal was for a part of time, probably a good 5 or 10 years, one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. He was in one of the biggest movie blockbusters of the 70s called Love Story. He did a Stanley Kubrick movie where he was the star of it called Barry Lyndon. I mean, he was a huge star. So when you reached out to me and you're like, you got Ryan O'Neal in a $10,000 movie, I'm like, I got to know this story. It's remarkable that he agreed to do it. But you're right, you never know until you ask. But isn't this like such a classic LA story? Like you just like, I know the assistant of an Oscar nominated guy, and hey, maybe he'll be a cameo in my movie. Like it's so cliche.
It's so true, man. It's so true. And like, you don't know till you ask, man. And I didn't know if he would do it, I had met him a handful of times, and like, I was just like, look, this is a small little movie, and, credit to my friend. She kind of went to bat for me, and she was like, listen, I think these guys are super talented, and this is what they've done, and this is some of their work samples, and this is what the movie's about. And he was kind of like, yeah, I'll do it. And then you make it, you schedule it around him.
Very comfortable. Yeah.
Like come in, you're good. You're out in a couple hours, but to his credit, I mean, he came in and like, I just think he really loves acting. And I think he loves filmmaking, man. Like, like you could just feel it. And like, everybody of course was like, how is Kubrick, like, how is it work? Like everybody wanted to know, and he was like, man, he was great. He's like, he just kept making me do so many takes. And I was starting to go mad a little. And he's like, well, do you want me to change anything, or do I, and he's like, no, keep going. You're doing good. Just keep going. But he said, obviously that was one of the
big
highlights of his stuff. And everybody wanted to talk to him about it, for sure.
Yeah, of course. Everybody's
it was crazy.
Anytime I talk to anybody who even remotely touched Kubrick, I'm like, so how was Stanley? And everybody, because he's such a mythical, figure in filmmaking. And to work with someone like not only just like an actor who worked with him, he was the star of one of his films. It's fairly remarkable, and that he came out and did your movie is a testament to him, man. Like he just wants to do it. He just wants to have some fun.
Yeah, like I caught him too. We were like when we were filming at his house, I caught him kind of like looking over the balcony, like checking out the cameras and stuff. Like I just think he loves it, Like it was cool, I was like, he's still got that itch,
And what did you shoot on?
So we actually shot on a Sony A7, which I own, and I also have a Schneider Xeon Prime 35 millimeters. So we shot the whole thing on that.
Nice.
So that Sony A7 is really good in low light, and also has a super 35 crop mode. So you kind of get like a 35 and a 50, but that's it, man. We shot the whole thing on that internal little 4K camera.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
And what'd you do for sound?
Sound, we owned a little sound kit. So we basically had we have like a Zoom F8, which is it's pretty good. And then we had GH3 lavs, and a lot of prayers to the movie gods that we wouldn't fuck it up, but we some days we were rolling double duty, and some days we had somebody, the bigger days we had somebody like on the bag at all times, but it was challenging.
Now, what was like the biggest thing you learned in production while making this film? Biggest lesson?
Biggest lesson I think that we learned is I wouldn't spread it out again like we did.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did it. Like, I'm glad we got it in the can, but I mean, it started to really wear on me, the time that we were like locked into this. Plus, we're shooting out of my apartment, I'm in every scene, I wrote it with Kevin, we're using my gear, so spreading it out over a long period of time, it allowed us to do it while having jobs and life, and, Kevin has kids and all that stuff that comes with it. But I underestimated how much that would wear on me, I think, I would have scheduled it a tighter for sure.
Now, you wrote it. Was this a full blown script or a screenplay, or did you actually improv some stuff?
So it was actually it was a full feature. It was actually set in New York at first, and it was bigger. It was Kevin and I were trying to sell a bunch of stuff. We had a TV deal that kind of jammed us up for about 2.5 years. We were in an option with a big studio, and it was also a very Hollywood cliche and did not end well, and but kind of made us be like, let's do this. Let's do this on our own, So I don't even know if I answered your question.
The writing.
Oh, the writing of it. So it was a script, but it was much bigger. It was more like we had set it in New York, and it was more kind of to potentially option or sell. And then we were looking at kind of our, arsenal or inventory, if you will. We were like, what could we pull off for cheap, if we could kind of rewrite it for what we have. And that was kind of the starting place for it. We kind of worked backwards a little bit and changed it to work with things that we had access to,
But it was an actual full blown screenplay where you actually had dialogue, and all the actors had to know their dialogue and stuff. It wasn't improv like scriptment like the Polish brothers did.
No, it was not. It was a fully written piece. Yeah.
Now, how are you handling post? You're going to be doing all the editing yourself, obviously.
So I edited it. Kevin and one of our producers did all the music for it. And we just got the first pass of our sound mix done that we reached out to, and actually really helps so much.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Crazy.
It's unbelievable, So we're really close. We kind of playing the festival game a little bit, but kind of trying to figure out where we are going to land distribution wise. And
so what are you going to do for distribution?
Well, I think most likely we're going to self-distribute it. We're talking to some people, some companies overseas a little bit. But do you know the filmmaker Jim Cummings, who did Thunder Road? Yeah,
the name sounds familiar. Yeah.
So he's he did this 1 minute, not 1 minute, sorry, this one take short that won Sundance, and he followed up and did the feature version of that won South by.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very vocal about having no deals come out of it at all for distribution,
right?
After winning South by,
Mm-hmm.
and he's kind of been an advocate for self-distribution. So, we're kind of starting to research how he did it, and other people that have self-distributed, yourself included. I know that you self-distributed some of your films.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're leaning towards that kind of being probably the direction, at least domestically, and if we could maybe broker some deals overseas, we're looking into that. But it's still a little bit up in the air. We're waiting to hear from festivals, but I don't have much faith in festivals anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think, from seeing the trailer alone, I don't find that this kind of film plays well at festivals. In my opinion, it's just because it's a comedy. It's about the industry, which generally doesn't play well at festivals. Those kind of things, it's tougher. It's a tougher sell for festivals. It's not kind of like what they're programming for. So it's difficult. As far as sales are concerned, I think you could definitely sell overseas with this because it's very American. It is Hollywood, and that does sell well. And you do actually have not only one face, but you actually have a name that people, will recognize at least. And you could put the word Oscar nominee in the trailer and in the thing if Mr. O'Neill allows you to do that. So
and we call him Mr. O'Neill all the time.
Yeah, you don't bust out like, yo, Rye, what up, man? We're going out. You want to come? No,
I got a reshoot for you. He'd be I got
a reshoot. Can you come in? Only 70 takes like Kubrick. I'm just trying to redo what you did with Kubrick. No, very cool, man. Now you said originally that you listened to a bunch of Indie Film Hustle. How did Indie Film Hustle help you on this process? I'm curious because I always put stuff out there, but I really want to know how it's actually practically helping you guys.
Well, I mean, listen, dude, like I think everybody needs some reinforcement and inspiration sometimes, and especially as filmmakers and indie filmmakers and struggling. And so I first came on to you guys like maybe a couple years ago, and kind of just looking for other, like-minded filmmakers, and just and you have some really great guests and just educational stuff too. But sometimes even just hey, it's been a rough week, and do I want to do this anymore? Like, what am I doing? And sometimes, just finding, something on your podcast where it's just like, hey, this is my experience, or having a guest that it's like, this is their experience. So just from a, kind of just a human aspect, it's been helpful. And then, like I said, the Polish Brothers one, that was a big one with the new media contract. Because when they first talked about it, that was fairly new. And that kind of helped us with a little loophole, especially having, Mindy and Ryan and people that we had to do something,
Mm-hmm. It was interesting though that they actually asked for forgiveness, not for permission. So I don't know if you remember that in the interview, like they went out and they like, screw it, we don't give a crap. And they just,
which I love.
Which is, and they're just like, and they came back and no one would have cared because it was shot a little DSLR movie with no, very little script, and they shot it in France, and it just happened to have a major TV star on it at the time, but she wasn't a major TV star or just starting out like a season or two in or something when she did it. Stana Katic from Castle. But when they came back and they made $500,000 on it on iTunes, because they were like the first guys to use iTunes, one of the first, and she had a huge following. And the movie's called For Lovers Only, so they're all like waiting for her and him to have a beautiful lovemaking scene or something like that. So that bribe fed into it, and they just did this whole thing. And then SAG's like, hey, where's our money?
Of course,
they're like, we didn't sign anything with you. What are you talking about?
I know. I do remember that. So like they almost, I think they said they almost were like the reason it came about, right?
Yeah, they were
media, because they were like, hey, you don't have a contract for us, right?
Right, exactly. They would have never been able to make it with their traditional SAG contract, and they just didn't care. They were making a French New Wave black and white movie, which is why I'm so humbled and blessed that I was able to get that movie for my streaming service, and the making of the movies on IFH TV, because I love that movie. It's such an inspiration, that movie, for me as well. It was one of the inspirations I shot This Is Meg with, because I saw what they did. I was like, well, I could go do that. Like, not saying it like I could just do it like they did it, but I was like, it inspired me. I'm like, well, I can definitely go make a movie myself. I'm like, let's do this. And it's such an inspiration. I'll put a link in the show notes for both of their episodes, because Mark's has a whole other angle on his movies and all the stuff that he came out with later. But
yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Did you hear that last one?
I did. Yeah. I actually, it's funny because I met Kate Bosworth at a film festival.
Okay, yeah.
And
That's
she's Michael's wife. Yeah. And they had done that movie Nona.
Yeah.
That she was in.
Oh,
and
oh no. Yes.
So, but I remember talking to her about it too, as far as being like, we're just gonna go shoot this thing and jump around countries and you know, and they did.
Michael told me about that. Michael told me about that movie years ago, and it was like, you know, for people who don't know, like, she actually said what the budget was publicly. And killed their distribution deal, because they're like, oh yeah, we made this movie for like $500 or something like that, something ridiculous. And they're like, what? And we were going to give you $100,000 for this, you know, because it's starring Kate Bosworth in it, you know, like, yeah. Mark told us that story. I was like, oh, it's brutal, so brutal. Oh, can you imagine? Oh God, but you know what? That is a true indie spirit, man. It's just going out there and asking for forgiveness, not permission many times, making sure everything's safe and everyone's cool and all that stuff. But, you know, going out there and making it happen, so that, you know, you guys are definitely a proponent of that, and with your film, without question, man. But I'm glad Indie Film Hustle, you know, threw you a couple bones and helped you guys out a little bit.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely, man. And I appreciate it, dude. Trust me. There's a lot of, you know, as you know, there's a lot of filmmakers out there that need a little, you know, little inspiration and pick me up every now and then. So
dude, I wish I would have had
keep it going.
I wish I would have had something like this like 20 years ago, dude. But there was no the filmmakers coming up now. They have just no idea what it was like in the 90s, man, or in the 80s and 90s, when there is no information about filmmaking, like none.
Yeah.
Like the Raiders of the Lost Ark documentary and like the Star Wars documentaries are it. This is before DVDs. Is before there's like nothing, and then you had to go buy books to learn about filmmaking in the library.
Yeah,
I know.
Library. Yeah,
I know. People are like, "What is this library they speak of?" So I'm going to ask you a few questions. I ask all my guests, dude. What advice would you give a filmmaker wanting to break into the business today?
I always go with just make your own stuff. You know, if you're an actor, you put up a play, make a short film. You know, if you're a writer, write for somebody that wants to put up. You know, get with people that want to be proactive. And I always believe in the doing. You know, I think that's, you know, because you could have a million excuses to not do anything. You know, and I think you learn. I think you learn more from doing. I've always been. You know, some people could read a textbook and that like translates in their mind to them, you know, but for me, it's always been like in the doing, you learn more than you could ever learn in a book, I think, you know.
Now, is there a book that had a big impact in your life or career?
You know, I don't know if I could point my finger in one. I like a lot of kind of biographies, autobiographies. And again, just for like inspiration, you know, kind of see where people started. So I know, I read Jack Nicholson's one, which was a good one. I forget the name of it. Actually, I think I have it over here somewhere. And then, and Scorsese on film is pretty great too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Especially being from New York. I'm like,
Marty's a god, man.
Scorsese makes.
Yeah. Marty and Spike Lee, and Spike Lee, both New York guys that just like, you know, are gods in New York. You know, without question. Yeah. Now, what lesson took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
I guess I would say, kind of why, like being okay with why you're doing it. You know, I think early on or at least for me, you're kind of like, I think it's natural to kind of look for approval from, you know, whoever, peers, family, friends, you know, and kind of want to almost share that journey with that, you know, with them. But I think when I kind of got to the point where I was like, you know, I'm doing this, I love it, I'm doing this for me. They're going to love me no matter what. I could do whatever. And I think that kind of opened up some kind of freedom to kind of really try to enjoy it. I know everybody says enjoy the process and the journey and all that stuff. And, you know, I guess there is truth to it, but yeah. And know that, you know, results are like, they're very fleeting. I mean, just because something's in a movie theater or it's on TV, it doesn't mean it's a good movie necessarily. It doesn't mean, you know, you're doing any less or something, you know, it's all relative to a certain extent. So I don't know.
What is the biggest fear that you had to overcome to make this film?
I guess fear of failure. I mean, people not liking it, you know, not reaching an audience or, you know, not getting the response that, and we're still dealing with that in some regards, you know, like,
yeah, festivals, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like you get like, you know, gazillion, you know, rejection letters and emails, but, yeah, I think more so that, I don't know, for us, we've never kind of had like the fear of making, like we've been making stuff for so long that I think we know, like we could get it done, but I think the quality and the story, and if it's going to connect with people, and if the message is right, and we're staying true to ourselves while doing all that stuff, you know, I think that's always the hardest. Yeah.
And 3 of your favorite films of all time.
Oh, and I knew you were going to ask me this too. I like to separate them. I can't put them all in like the top 3. So I usually like to do. All right. So I'll give you 3. And more so because they kind of like oddly affected me. But so for comedy, I always have to go to like Caddyshack, man. Caddyshack. I don't know. It just
it's genius.
Still holds true. It still holds true.
It still holds.
And then one that like really affected me, and I don't know why, that I watched when I was younger, was Requiem for a Dream. Darren Aronofsky's.
That'll affect anybody.
Movie. Yeah, you know,
that'll affect anybody.
And I feel like that. And then like from like a blockbuster, like an aha, like in the movie theater kind of moment, like I think E.T. for me.
Yeah, that was mine.
Yeah.
That was mine.
Just like, I don't know. There's just something. It was just so much larger than life for me, and you know, another one that like obviously holds up. But there's so many. I don't know. Those
that's Steven Spielberg. That Steven Spielberg really helped out a lot of filmmakers.
Yeah, I heard he's going to make some waves. Look out for him.
Little Steven Spielberg's going to do all right. And now where can people find you and find out more about the movie?
So 418films.com is our website that probably has the most up-to-date stuff, or Instagram is we're probably posting the most about, and that's at 418films. And yeah, hopefully within the next couple of months, we're going to kind of know what's up and how we're getting out there.
Awesome, brother. Nick, man, thank you so much for coming on the show, man, and dropping some knowledge bombs and some inspiration for everybody listening. So hopefully now you can pass it along and pay it forward the same way by you listening to Michael and Mark got inspiration to make it. So now hopefully now out there somewhere, there's a filmmaker going, if Nick can do it, I can go do it too. So hopefully that'll happen, man.
Yeah, I hope so, man. It's nice to hopefully give back a little bit.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Nick, for coming in and dropping some inspirational knowledge bombs on the tribe today. It just goes to show you guys, if you want to make it happen, you can make it happen. And I'm so glad that the Indie Film Hustle podcast helped you in some way make your film. So thank you again, Nick, so much. If you want to get links to anything we talked about in this episode, please head over to indiefilmhustle.com/335 for the show notes. And if you haven't already, please head over to filmmakingpodcast.com, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really, really helps us out a lot, and I really want to get this information out to as many filmmakers as humanly possible. Also, share. If you love what we do here, share it. Share links, share things on Facebook, on Twitter, or Instagram, wherever you want to share it. Please share this information to as many people as possible. I really, truly appreciate it, guys. And I've got a few other things cooking for the tribe. You know, I love cooking. You know, I love doing cool stuff behind the scenes for you guys, and that's what I'm doing and am doing as we speak. And I am busy finishing up my new book, Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, which, by the way, became a #1 bestseller already on Amazon in the filmmaking book category. That's insane. So thank you so much. If you want to check that book out, head over to filmbizbook.com. That's filmbizbook.com, and check it out, pre-order, sign up, all that kind of cool stuff. That's the end of another episode of the Indie Film Hustle podcast. I hope this episode has been of service to you on your filmmaking journey. Thanks again, and as always, keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.